All right, let's talk about chapters 10 and 11. We'll at least start with 10. If we don't quite finish 11, we won't finish, but we're going to get what we can covered. So I'm going to screen share here and go here. And obviously chapter 10 is about volunteer and intern management. I can say from experience that it is very much something that you will deal with in therapeutic recreation. You will have, especially if you get CTRS certification, a big thing that you can do is be over interns, and that actually helps. I think at this point they have moved, and I would have to double check this, but I think that you get CEU credit for being an intern supervisor. So that is a positive thing of being over interns for sure. Interns can be very helpful. Interns can be a pain. Interns are not really in the, when you look at the job description, unless you are like at a teaching hospital or something like that, your bosses are going to expect you to get this done. And you're going to be, if you're the manager, administrator, like we're talking about here, then you're going to be overseeing a lot of people anyway. So this just adds another person that you have to bring in that you're not even necessarily hiring, that you have to train. You have to show them the skills that they need, the background checks and things like that. So there's a lot of work to get them in. Once you get an intern though, and they're trained, then you can get some good work out of them, so it's worth it, and they're getting a good experience. And if you get really good interns, then you may actually get a good employee out of it as well. So it's all worth the process for sure, but it is a component of personnel management. TR manager is going to either be directly responsible for volunteer or intern, or work in concert with the agency, HR, or volunteer department, or the unit staff to manage volunteers and interns. If you are a CTRS, you will be the person who is over the intern for sure. They'll be the one, you'll have to sign off on all their paperwork. You'll be the one that has to come up with what they're going to be doing. They'll have to be with you a large majority of their days for that reason, because you have to sign off on what they are doing and have been doing. Now you may have to, HR department is going to have to do the vetting process to get them in, if they run background checks and things like that. So you will work with other groups where you work. There's phases that are listed here for volunteer and intern management. So obviously you're going to start out with planning. Okay, I think we're able to do interns. What sort of interns are we looking for? How many can we use? How many can we supervise? How many do we need? What should they be helping us to work on? Things like that. So that would be the planning phase. At that point, you go through the process where you do selection of interns. So hopefully you have a good program and you have multiple applicants for an internship. That's the best case scenario. Once you go through the selection process, then they go through orientation where they're taught what they need to do for the job. There may be safety things that they have to be trained on. If they don't have CPR, first aid, and you want them to have that, that may be something you set up early on in their internship. Then once they're through orientation, that's kind of like they've got their initial little training where they can get started. Then you can go to training and supervision, where you give them more job-specific rules, plans, guidance, and then you just supervise to make sure that they're doing what they need to do and that they're getting things from their experience that they can learn from moving forward. Because to me, I mean, an internship, okay, I'm over the SRA internships, and people, I get students all the time emailing me and saying, all right, I talked to Bradley, it's about time for my internship. Where do you want me to do it? What should I do? I'm like, that's your choice. You know, I'm not gonna pick an intern site for you or find an intern site for you. Because an internship is a kind of a trial run for what you want to do. If it's done the right way, you need to do an internship at a place where, number one, you're interested in what's going on there. You know, it also needs to be a place where if you are successful in your internship, not every internship leads to a job, but you want it to be at a place where you come in, you do a great job, and they offer you a position that you would be willing to take it. So don't waste an internship just going anywhere and taking any internship if you can help it. You know, practicums are a little different, but a directed internship needs to really be a trial run for your job is best case scenario on that. At least something strongly in your field. You know, you may want to work with elderly adults as a CTRS, but only have the opportunity to work with substance abuse, and that's fine. You may get in there, you're still using the same processes, you're just seeing a different group, and you may learn from that, hey, this is who I want to work with. You know, I may enjoy this more than working with older adults. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. The next phase in intern management would be evaluation, recognition, and termination, which termination sounds bad here, not necessarily firing. It's just the end of the internship. You know, there's a predetermined number of hours and it's going to end at some point. But you evaluate how they did, usually have to answer back to, you know, the interns that are in 401 here, their supervisors have to send me evaluations of how they're doing because they're the ones that are with them every day. So I'll look over that. I'll talk with the students. So you have evaluation. If they've done an exemplary job, then recognition. And termination is end of the experience. Or in some cases, well, this happened when I was at NMRC. We had an internship student that came in, was trained. We gave him specific duties that he was supposed to be working on. Every time we came by, he would just be sitting in the staff office, like feet kicked up, playing a guitar by himself in the office, you know, stuff like that. We had to let that one go and we brought in another intern. So sometimes termination can mean termination. So preparation for volunteers and internships. You need to assess whether your agency is ready for internships. You know, do we have the foundation to be able to handle interns? Do we, you know, are you as a CTRS already overloaded? If so, will bringing in an intern help to, you know, spread your job load and help you out, or will it overburden you? You know, that's the kind of things that you'd have to look at and talk about. Define benefits and outcomes. You know, what benefits do we expect? What outcomes do we expect from having an intern come in? And I'm talking primarily about interns because volunteers usually are very short term. So understand that I'm talking volunteers as well, but interns are the ones that are more long term that you'll deal with and for longer amounts of time. Review standards and regulations according to your facility where you work, state regulations, whatever regulations there may be, from the facility that, you know, from the school let's say that they're coming from, what sort of standards are they asking you to uphold as a provider of internships? You need to make policies for, you know, what are our policies for interns when they come in? Will they be paid internships? Will they be unpaid? What sort of hours will they work? What is expected of them? All of these things should really be put in a formal manual type situation. You're going to prepare job descriptions at the Park Commission, there were several different internship opportunities. If I had an intern, it would be involved with CTRS things, and we would work with older adults doing recreation therapy activities, working at the pool, maybe doing aquatic therapy sort of interventions. There was also athletics interns who would help to run baseball, who may put on something like adult dodgeball as a special event during their internship. So there were different job descriptions for each one of these areas that you were going to intern in. But as a CTRS, you just need your one job description, basically. As a CTRS intern, these are the things that you will be asked to perform. Then at that point, you're going to prepare your staff and training resources. Make sure that your staff that work for you and with you are aware that you're going to have interns coming in. This is how you can help with the situation. Define screening criteria and processes. You probably need to do a background check, especially if your facility is dealing with vulnerable adults. You're talking about people with developmental disabilities, elderly, things like that. I would probably do a background check for sure. You probably, like I said, if you want them to have CPR first aid certification prior, you need to make sure that that happens. At NMRC, we had to do tuberculosis testing. So you probably would have that done. You know, different facilities are going to have different criteria and processes when they come in. And then you're going to develop a marketing plan to recruit and retain volunteers and interns. You know, once you have all this in place, putting it all together is a little bit of work, but once you have a manual and once you've run through it a couple times, internships are a positive. You know, at the Park Commission, Seth, the director there, he very much likes having interns. Number one, it kind of livens up the place a little bit, changes the people you see every day. The patrons enjoy seeing, you know, young people in there trying to help them do their things. They're enthusiastic usually. Also, once you have all this in place, it's easier to just kind of plug them in spots. The people who are supervising know better how to do that. You don't have to spend as much time with each in preparation. They become more beneficial the more that you have, is basically the key. So then, back to selection and orientation. You have to select your candidates from an applicant pool. Hopefully you have a good applicant pool. For you guys that will be applying for internships, I hope you have very small pools where you have the most chances of getting in exactly where you want to get. But it can be competitive, especially at certain places, locations. Once you've chosen the candidates that are interview worthy, you know, you want to cut, you know, say you have 10. You don't want to spend the time, or I wouldn't want to spend the time to interview 10 internship candidates. You know, this isn't even a full-time job. You want to look at the pool and you can say, all right, we can cut half of these right off the top and cut it down to 5. And then maybe have a meeting with just your group, you know, yourself and a couple others, and look and say, hey, look these over and rank them for me. Have some people kind of help you. And you may be able to cut 2 more off the top of that and get down to the top 3. Now you're only interviewing 3. seeing people in person or via Skype or whatever it may be you can learn a lot from that. So you do want to interview the ones who are worthy of an interview for sure, but I would cut it down to, 3 myself. There's no need interviewing more than 3 people probably for one position. It's not a dead set number. That's just kind of my opinion and thought on that. Once you interview them, eventually you're going to place the ones that are selected as volunteers and interns. Once they're selected and brought in, then you're going to orient them to the work tasks. You're going to show them the agency. This is what we do. You're going to give them the tour and say, okay, this is going to be your office space right here, things like that, and introduce them to the other professionals. And that's important because you want them to feel like part of the team, and you want that's something that you need to, say you're over a recreation therapy department. You get an intern come in. You're the CTRS, so you're over the intern. Now, you're not going to be with them 24/7, 365, while they're there. But so that's why you need to go around and introduce your new intern to all of your staff. Make it a point to introduce them. Say, hey, they're going to be here for 560 hours. So y'all are going to get to know each other very well while you're here. You're going to be treated very much as an employee, because that's what an internship is all about. You're seeing what this is like and whether this is something you're interested in. So you go through that, you make sure that they meet the other professionals, people in your department and people outside of your department that they're going to be seeing on a regular basis. I'm not saying every single person. If you're in a hospital or something like that, use some common sense on who they need to be. But the people that they're going to be probably dealing with and talking to, make sure that they're actually, that they've been put together and had a chance to talk. At that point, identify training needs. What do they need training on? That depends on what you need them to do, for one. Also, a lot of times you can ask interns about, what do you hope to get from this internship? And that can help you kind of tweak the direction you go with their internship process. So that may have some factor on what their training needs are going to be. At that point, you go over supervisory and evaluation procedures. This is who's going to be supervising you, me. This is what I'm going to be looking for. Each, at the end of every month, we'll talk, and this is what I'm going to evaluate you on as far as what kind of job you're doing. So you need to have that up front, just like a regular job. They need to know what's going to be expected, what they're going to be evaluated on, so they can have a fair chance of getting 100% on their evaluation if they know everything that's going to be asked of them. At that point, you complete any contracts and agreement forms that you may have. For us, and like SRA 401, there's just an internship site agreement form that has to be signed by the student and their supervisor. They're also right now having to sign a COVID waiver form. They have to show me that they're CPR and first aid certified. Off the top of my head, that's all I remember. There's a couple other things that they have to show me as well. But those are the things that you do to kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it, and okay, now you're working. Let's go. So during the training and supervision phase, you want to, up front, prepare, organize, and conduct training. This is another thing that you're going to spend a lot of time on up front. If you're the first CTRS to come into a facility, you're going to be overseeing internships. You're going to have to come up with specific trainings that you're going to share with your interns when they come in. However, once you get that put together, the first time is going to take you a little while to get it all prepped, but the next time you'll already have gone through it with somebody. You'll already have, just say you were going to use a PowerPoint presentation, you would already have your presentation ready So the next time it's going to be easier. And the next time it's going to be easier. And then the time after that, you probably won't even need to be reading off anything to go through the training because you've done it and now you remember it. So that's another case of how through time, these internships become more and more beneficial because you've got everything in place and it moves a lot quicker and easier. So during the whole process, you're going to supervise your intern, volunteer. You want to watch their interactions with both your staff, other staff, and with your clients. Both are kind of equally important because they both are going to make a big factor, say, especially if you have a job opening or something coming up. Not only is it important to see how they're working with your clients, but you want to see if they're getting along with the staff as well. Do you want to hire somebody who's just not really gelling with the department? Probably not. You need to see what their people skills are, not just with your clients, but with fitting in with the team. You're going to document their performance and note their progress, and then look at volunteer retention and promotion. Are you able to, when you have volunteers come in, do they want to stay on for longer? Do they have the opportunity to go from, you know, working with one set of clients up to another as volunteers? Are you giving them the opportunities and if they're getting their bare minimum of time in and then just jetting, then you need to look at yourself and say, okay, what can I do to make this intern and volunteer experience better? You know. So now here we are on evaluate, recognize, terminate. So evaluation measures the intern's abilities to perform entry-level practice skills. You're not going to evaluate them on things that they should be doing 5 years after being in the field. You're looking at entry-level skills. You know, are they able to document whether or not objectives are being met during a treatment session? You know, I'm talking about a checklist sheet, things like that. Are they showing up on time? Are they effective communicators? Are they able to motivate the clients? Things like that, entry-level skills that you need to have kind of coming in. Now you can improve on those, but you need to have some of that when you come in to start work. So volunteer evaluations report the quality of program enhancement. You want to see how much having the volunteers present, what has it done to improve what you were already offering prior to having volunteers. Check that out. I just got an awesome splinter in my finger off of this thing. Is it Monday? No, it feels like Monday. Okay. It feels like Monday. I'm up here talking and I'm getting splinters like to the bone. So again, the manager recognizes staff, interns, and volunteers for exemplary jobs. You know, it's got the picture here. Nice job. What do y'all get more out of? How many of you like constructive criticism? I mean, I think constructive criticism is a positive. Would you rather get constructive criticism, or would you rather somebody catch you while they're doing something that you really like, that they really like to see you doing, and saying, hey, that's great, I like seeing you do that? Or would you rather them pick out the things that you're not doing exactly right and talk to you about that? Some people handle constructive criticism for exactly what it is, constructive. Some people do not. My wife do not. My wife do not like constructive criticism, and she gets super butthurt over something that is totally meant to be helpful. And I, love her to death. I'm not saying, but like, she's just not one for constructive criticism. She gets her feelings hurt at work when somebody's trying to help her figure something. That's just a personality thing. I can take constructive criticism and realize that, hey, they're trying to help me. So remember that. But for the most part, if you're able to give somebody a high five, a thumbs up, good job, I really like what you're doing here, you did awesome today, that is going to be very motivating for most people. The manager is going to maintain continuity in client services when the volunteer and intern depart. So you want to make sure that once your volunteer or intern leaves, that the things that they were offering to them that were probably kind of extra because you had that extra body, you want to try to make sure that those services don't go away just because the volunteer or intern goes away. You know, you don't want it to be a negative for your clients just because your volunteer leaves. So that may be adding a little extra something to some of your staff, or that may be a good point for you to have to say, go to your leadership above you and say, hey, they're doing a really good job working with the hippotherapy program. I think it would be a great idea if we could try to keep them on. You know, do we have a position available? If so, I would recommend keeping them on. Whatever you may need to do, but the key is when you lose volunteers and interns, don't let your clients suffer because of it, because you've lost somebody who wasn't on the payroll. They've been getting better services because of them, so you need to try to maintain that level, and that's a challenge as a manager to keep level of what you're offering that high when you have lost one body, even though it's an intern. I say that as that's not a bad thing. Interns can be really, really good. So trends and issues that are related to volunteer and intern management. Volunteers, they desire meaningful short-term experiences. Special Olympics, volunteering with Special Olympics. If you do that, you are going to get a meaningful short-term experience. You know, even if you volunteer for, say, summer games, that's like a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday commitment. You would come in, help work the games. That's short-term in the scheme of things, and it would be very meaningful. Volunteer experience, you would get a lot of good out of that. Interns, they're looking for quality experiences, and for the most part, are challenged financially, because you're talking about people who are in college, who are not in the workforce yet, or if they are, you know, they've got a part-time job or a job already, and for an internship that has to be 40 hours a week or more, then to be able to do that, what has to happen to their other job? Usually, you're about going to have to let that go. So what's that going to do to them financially? So something to look at as an internship site supervisor, are we able to provide any sort of compensation for interns? Does it have to be monetary? Is that the only kind of compensation that you could give your interns? What are some other choices? Say you're going to do a internship in Montana. What's something that would help you that wouldn't be money? Absolutely. Absolutely. If they have like a cafeteria or something on site at the place where you're working, if they have housing available, if they offer you housing and food, you don't really need you don't really need much money, you know, and then that's something that they may be able to do without really affecting the budget of the facility. One person eating some meals in a room that was already empty, you know, it's a great pull for interns. So think about things that you can offer to internships that may not be budgetary, and it may be other things that you could give to help them out, because they are going to be challenged financially, and somewhere to stay some food benefits and things like that help. You know, it does. Managers and staff are challenged to take the time to train and supervise volunteers and interns. It's true, like I said, especially at first, when you're learning it as a, you know, first time, second time, even third time internship supervisor, you're still learning the ropes on how your best way to train them. You know, you're still putting together paperwork and internship manuals and things that you're gonna share with them to help teach them what they have to do. So it is a challenge because you already have a job prior to internships even being in the picture. You're expected to do this. On top of that, you need to also train an intern and supervise an intern. So that's adding to your plate a little bit. Again, very much worth it. The first few times will be cumbersome and will take you, but once you have done it a few times, it becomes much easier and you get a lot more benefit out of the work that you're able to get out of the internships. They start to get better internships because you're better at what you're more efficient at training. You're better, you'll start seeing where they're needed the most. You'll start seeing where the interns start to thrive. So it's easier to send them the proper directions. Long story short, it just gets easier the more times that you do it. Volunteer and internship management is becoming increasingly professional and influenced by standard and regulations. That's just a trend, an issue. You know, when the watchdogs come in and look, they may, we're talking about JCAHO and the accrediting bodies that come in and make sure that you're doing things the right way. They may even look at things like how you are dealing with interns. You know, are you following proper protocols, or are you letting them slide because they're interns? You know, they're going to look at things like that. And that's something I want to talk about more before this semester is out. Are those like accrediting agencies that come in and check to make sure that you're doing things the right way? Because if I recall, it's been a while since I took my CTRS exam, but there were several questions on there about like JCAHO, which is the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Hospitals, and there's several of those, and we're going to talk about some of those because I want you to recognize what they are and what their purpose is. So if nothing else, I'm going to give y'all some handouts or something where you can have it to take with you. You can't leave this class without knowing that. If we start getting toward the end and one of you thinks about it and I haven't done that, remind me, because I want y'all to have information on that stuff. Okay. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. It is a valid situation though. You will, if you are over a department, if you're a CTRS, if you're working in a good facility, you will eventually have internships under your supervision. So this is a pertinent chapter. It definitely fits into some things that you would be doing for sure. Let me pull up chapter 11. And let's see if we can shoot through chapter 11 before today is out. So I'll share again. There you go. Go away. There you go. Okay, this one's all about communicating effectively in the workplace. Very, very important. You know how when you're talking to someone, it's just like I was saying about constructive criticism. A lot of times it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You know, how you approach someone. Effective communication, I mean, communication is simple. You can get it in a lot of ways. You can get it verbally. You can get it from nonverbal cues. You can get it from whether or not people are engaged with you when you're talking to them or not. Whether they're, you can tell whether somebody's hearing what you're saying. A lot of different ways to communicate effectively and ineffectively in a workplace. So the 3 types that they list here of communication in an agency, you've got personal and interpersonal, managerial, and professional. So managers spend most of their time in oral communication. They separate important from insignificant communication to manage their time. Managers are a little more generally stressed on time constraints, so they do have to, I don't really like the wording, insignificant. It makes most messages and things that you have to communicate about are going to be significant at the very least. Now, junk mail is a good example of insignificant that they can just cut away and not worry about. But needs to be kind of prioritized, flag the important ones, put them in an order where you can respond in appropriate order. If you've got an email from the big boss man of the company, you probably want to get on that one before you respond, to the intern who just started. I would answer the big boss first. Not that the intern's not important, but the intern can't fire you. Just a point. So personal and interpersonal communication in a formal setting. Oral communication, the work environment impacts how one speaks. And that's something that you set up in your work environment. You need to set the tone for what is allowable and what is not. I've worked in places where the slightest little inappropriate joke could get you in big trouble. And I've worked in places where, man, anything goes. And if you don't have tough skin, you don't want to work there. As a manager, you have to set boundaries as far as how people can speak in your facility. And I would err towards the side of keeping it professional, because otherwise you'll be dealing with sit-down meetings and disciplinary things and accusations of sexual misconduct and things like that before you know it, just because of a joke that some guy didn't think anything about. That was something to the lady that heard it, and I understand. Nonverbal communication, it says here, and this is true, the greatest impact of oral communication comes from the nonverbal side. When you are communicating and receiving oral communication, your tone, your nonverbal cues say a lot. Your facial expression, your eyes, whether, if you're talking to somebody and you're, am I receptive right now? Probably not. I mean, like, this is a universal sign for, I don't like what you're telling me. If you're leaned in and shaking you're locked in, that's a much better nonverbal cue. It says a lot. Professional appearance is governed by written and unwritten rules. I would, when I was doing my manual for my department, this P&P manual I've talked about, policies and procedures, there needs to be something in there about what is expected for attire, because that's something that people are going to wonder. What do I need to wear to work? Am I expected to wear khakis and button downs every day? What if I have tattoos? Do I have to cover them up? Am I allowed to have a beard? Most of y'all don't have to worry about that, but I'm just saying those sorts of things, you can kind of save yourself a headache by getting those things put down in writing that you can say, all right, I want you to go over the internship manual or the hiring manual. Sorry, I'm stuck on internship still. Professional appearance, you need to define what is professional appearance, since that's just a simple way to put it. Written communication is going to reflect upon the manager and the organization. So you as a manager, you need your written communications to be formal. You need to proofread them. They need to be accurate. I'm the first one. I will send y'all emails and things, and I try to communicate a lot with you guys. You know, like the email I sent last night wasn't necessary. You know, I just wanted to say, okay, this is what we're covering. 2 chapters, try to be here if you can. You know, I like to at least if you're in multiple classes, like Kelly here, she gets me again later today. She gets lots of emails from me, probably more from me than other teachers, I would assume. Sorry about that. But I feel like that's part of how I like to communicate. That's beside the point. A good example of this bottom part about written communication reflecting on the organization and the manager, my wife has an interview tomorrow. She's already the acting director of resident living at NMRC. And I expect that she is in very good position to actually get the job. They just got a new pen, so they had to go through the process of opening it up, the job. So now other people can apply, even though she's been doing the job for 6 or 7 months. She may not get it. Things are very political, and if she doesn't get it, I may burn NMRC down. But I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna have to delete that from the recording too. But she is very good friends with the assistant director of the facility. They were in the same department together for a long time. Now she is in a higher position. So when she sent, Tamara's her name, and she sent an email to my wife yesterday saying, good afternoon, Catherine. You have your interview is scheduled for this time on Wednesday. There will be a panel interview. It was very, very formal. And my wife gets on the phone like 10 minutes later and calls her and like, girl, why are you sending me something all formal like this? And she's like, you know, that's how I have to do this. I had to do it formal. And she was like, so is there any chance you're going to tell me who's on the committee? She said, not a chance. So there is a good example of written communication reflecting on boundaries and doing things the right way. Yes, they're buddies. She could have sent her a text and said, hey, you got an interview tomorrow at 11. Not even sent out an email, but she's doing the same process that she does for everybody because that's the way it needs to be done. So don't forget to be professional with everyone and treat everyone the same when in a situation like that, especially. So personal and interpersonal communication, informal. This is where a lot of your problems come in the workplace because it occurs through word of mouth and digital networks. Digital networks are, you know, email, social media, text messages, things like that. There you see grapevine results in rumors and gossip and bickering and fights and all sorts of things. The grapevine is a dirty little vine. It serves as a feedback loop to judge accuracy and appropriateness of messages. What you get is you can see whether what you are putting out as a manager is reaching your people effectively enough that it can overcome all of this weaknesses that is seen in interpersonal communication. You need to make your message clear enough that everybody's going to get it. One good thing about this informal communication we're talking about, since there's less time available on a daily basis to actually run around and speak to every person that you need to, that's not always something that you can do. You can use email, social media to communicate thoughts and emotions. However, something to think about when you are doing emails, text messages, how many of you have sent a text or an email to someone with no malintent whatsoever, only the best thoughts, and somebody took it all kind of wrong? Almost everybody. Or how many times have you read an email from somebody and read it instead of reading, "I'd like for you to be at work tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We have an important meeting." "I'd like for you to be at work tomorrow at 8 o'clock instead of 9 like you've been being here." Like, you put tone to written words. It happens. You cannot help it. You know, I do it. My wife does it. She's evidently on my mind this morning. She's just a lot of good examples for this stuff. You know, I'll send her texts. I'll be busy or something, so I'll send her one a little bit short, and then I get the, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Busy." Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, I've just got 2 phone calls waiting and 14 emails, and yeah, just busy. Electronic communication. You need to set your protocol for electronic conversations, like texting that is work related and emails. You need to think of this as public communication. When I was at the Park Commission, I had a cell phone that they gave me, and at any moment, the OPC board, the mayor, a concerned citizen who had enough pull could come and get my phone from me and look at it to see about my communications and whether I'm using it for the proper things, because I was working for the city. So we were under those rules, you know, and we're very much under the thumb of government entity on that. So my content was public information. They could literally ask for my phone or my emails and look at anything that I sent. So you talk about being professional on emails and text messages. You're going to be professional when that's the case, I promise you. Something important to do it's just protocol. I don't do it every time. It's a good way to do things, is to change the subject line with each correspondence if you're doing email. It shows that you're taking a little bit of time for each one. It makes it easier for people to track your emails that you're sending if they're not just, because they pile up under each other in email, you know, if they link them all together, and I have trouble with that sometimes. I can't go back and find an email that I'm looking for. Use the proper title of a person. These are the type things that could go in a PNP manual. You know, you could have a section, protocol for electronic conversation. Keep this slide, you might use this. Use the proper title of the person. That makes it where you are keeping that formal tone that you should use when you're doing work-related functions, even if it's a buddy. You know, you don't want to say, even if it's your best friend that works with you, "Hey, butthead, let's meet for lunch at 11 o'clock. You know, don't do that. Just send them. If you're going to be on work email, something, you know, or a work phone that you're texting on, use appropriate stuff. Format as written letter, just basically use proper English and spelling, and use spell check and things like that. If you're sending out emails and communicating with people, your emails tell people a lot. You know, when you're texting with your buddies and you're and you put THX for thanks, that's great. Don't shorthand, you know, an email isn't Twitter. You got plenty of characters to use, so don't shorthand and don't use jargon and things like that. Use proper words. I'm not saying it has to be written like you're the Queen of England. I'm just saying make sure that you're being paying attention to what you're sending out. Consider timing of response and send these during professional hours. Example of this, not really having to do with being in the workplace, but an example of sending out information during professional hours. I'm on the coronavirus tracing team. I have to make phone calls. I'm also teaching 5 classes. I also have the 3 kids, a wife, and I set up medical equipment on the side. So my life is a total shit show right now, for lack of a better way to put it. And I can barely catch my breath. So a lot of times I'm working on the contact tracing stuff. It may be 12:30 a.m. So I sent out one night, because this is the first chance that I had to send them out. And it was a Sunday night. And I sent out about 7 quarantine documents to people who lived in a residence hall, because my thought was, let me get I know it's late, but let me get this out, because maybe I'll catch them before they go to class tomorrow. Because that's our whole goal, is to keep people from exposing others. So I thought I was doing the right thing. I was like, I'm going to go on and send this out. Next thing I know, I got parents calling me the next day. There's no way this can be legit. Why would my child be getting a you know, formal document from the university at 12:47 a.m.? I'm like, ma'am, because that's the only time I had to work on it. I apologize. Plus, I'm trying to, you know, I was trying to catch them. Maybe I thought they might check their email before they went to class. So, but it shows you where the time that you respond can sometimes matter. You know, that was a situation where it did to me. The manager has access to increased amounts of information through electronic communication. You can get more information and actually keep it. You're able to collaborate and make quicker decisions. In our department here, we have some guest lecturers that may be coming in and doing some master's level teaching for us. As being on staff, they asked for the faculty, our chair asked for the faculty to vote on this. We have to vote on almost everything as to whether or not somebody new is coming in, anything that's going to basically change. So rather than coming and knocking on my door and the next door, or even calling a meeting, our chair set up a Qualtrics survey, sent out an email to all of us, and asked us to submit our votes by today. Easy peasy. The manager is able to collaborate and make a decision based on what he receives from one survey that he put together and sent out to everybody in one email. That is efficient. And you still get the information that you need. You just need a majority rule, and you can find that out just by sending out an email. So electronic communication can be time-saving and helpful. So some workplace variables hang on, I got to see what that says. Impacting communication. There's physical factors, obviously, emotional concerns. You know, everybody has good days and bad days. Semantics. Does anybody know what semantics means? Anybody have a definition of that? I mean, because I sure don't. It's just on here. No, actually I do. Does anybody else know what it is? Semantics is when two people hear the same word and like kind of define it in a different way. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, like overwhelming. Yes, you can take, it's two different people. Say the word overwhelming. One person can think of overwhelming as all encompassing, my day is shot, I'm not going to be able to get out from under this. So for overwhelming for one person may just mean I've got to focus on this for 10 minutes and it's over. Semantics is just your personal, two people having a different definition for the same thing, basically seeing it differently. Different roles, different positions that people are in. Professional jargon, that's important. You think about going back to interns. We who work in the profession, you know, it's just like we say TR in here and CTRS and NCTRC, and a lot of places talk with acronyms. And when that happens and you have somebody new come in, how is a new person going to communicate with you if you're using all these acronyms that they don't know what they mean? But they don't really know you, so they're scared to ask you what it means. They don't want to look dumb. You know, that impacts communication for sure. Generational differences, absolutely. You know, I'm not quite that separated from you guys, but if I was a little older, there would probably be some generational differences in how we talk and understand. You know, there's all the new little phases that come out that your grandparents make fun of. You know, on fleek, what is on fleek? You know, that's the first thing I could think of. I don't know. Cultural variations, obviously different cultures speak differently, so that's going to impact communication. As a manager, you have to find ways around this. I'm not saying you have to hire interpreters and things like that, but you have to find ways to stem this as much as you can and help to bridge the gaps. Your organization's culture as a whole is going to impact communication, and information overload, which we're getting close to today in this class, I think. When you get just to a certain point, people kind of just glaze over and shut down. It's too much, you know. That's obviously going to impact communication and the learning of what you're actually wanting to get accomplished. Organizational communication, you have meetings. In these meetings, you can really see what the culture is of the facility and the workplace. Are the meetings professional? Are they timely? Are you wasting time in the meetings? You know, are you sitting in there for 2 hours for something that could take 15 minutes? Those are the worst. Hate them, hate them, hate them, hate them. One thing I will say about here, when we have meetings with our chair, he says we're going to meet from 2:30 to 3:30. At 3:30, that meeting is over. Whether he's covered what he wanted to or not, he says, okay, we've reached our time. We can carry this on later. Like, that to me goes a long way because he sees that our time is important and that it's important to stick to your schedule that you put out in front of people. So how well you run meetings and plan meetings are definitely a reflection on your skills as a manager. And remember, that's what we're talking about in this class. And I get off topic a little bit here or there, but remember, we're talking about being a manager and your roles in these things such as meetings. So when you're planning a meeting, you got to identify a purpose, who needs to attend. Sometimes not everybody needs to be there. And if they don't need to be there, don't have them there. They can be doing other things that are more effective for the facility. Or you may need a couple people to run an activity, or an activity therapy session. You can have a meeting with them later to tell them what they missed, or send them email information of the minutes. You may not have everyone come to the meeting. It's good to have an agenda that you develop, finalize, and distribute when they come to the meeting. That way you have something as an attendee that you can kind of check off. We've done this, done this, done this. We're getting closer, almost done. I like having an agenda. Determine when, where, and how long to meet. Once you set these things, unless you have to, don't change them. Conduct the meeting, and then follow up after the meeting. Usually there's going to be some things that you want people to think about, talk about, get back to me on this. During a meeting, there's usually follow-up that needs to be done. Managerial communication. Let's see how close we are. Let's just stop here today. I'm going to make a note on managerial communication. And then next class, we'll start right there and go shoot right on into the next chapter or two. If I can get through, I would love to get through 14 this week. That will get us to the next test. And I'm still thinking of some options for the next test. I've thought of things no, I'm not going to share. It'll be a surprise if we do of what I've thought of. But it's going to be difficult again, similar to the first one. As you see, the first one was difficult and I helped you guys out, and I will do the same thing this time. That doesn't mean don't try. I expect y'all to do better on this one because you see what kind of questions they are and you kind of know how and where to look. And you see that we're having to speed through this stuff. We can't go through in the depth that we need for me to stand here and feed you all these answers like I did in 262. And that's just the factor of the beast being at this level. So anyway, we'll jump right back here and finish up next time. Y'all have a good day. Thank y'all for coming. I'll see a couple of y'all in a few hours.